Hello everybody, welcome back to my channel. My name is Zara and today I'm going to be doing a review of The Grapes of Wrath by John Steinbeck. This is a fantastic book. If you've been watching my channel for a while now, you'll know that John Steinbeck is one of my favourite authors of all time. I wasn't actually planning to pick this book up this year. I was planning to pick it up next year, but I was able to get tickets to the Grapes of Wrath theatre show at the National Theatre, and so I wanted to read the book before I watched the show as well. In my August wrap up, I actually talk a little bit about the show. I won't do so in this video, apart from to say that it was absolutely phenomenal and it actually made me appreciate the book even more. I think that's what an adaptation should try to do. It should enhance the raw material that it pulls from, and they did an absolutely phenomenal job of really picking apart what makes this book special. So with that in mind, let's jump into a very, very brief summary, a very brief overview of what this book is about. In this book, we are following the Joad family, essentially as they are forced to migrate from their home in search of a better life. And as with a lot of John Steinbeck's books, we get a lot of exploration of family, but also around things like capitalism and the effects of capitalism on the average person. It's very deep, it's very layered, just like every other Steinbeck book I've ever read. And I think with that in mind, we can jump into my review. So the writing in this book is really interesting because I found it to be quite different to East of Eden and some of the other shorter stories of John Steinbeck's. I found it was a bit of an adjustment because I would say the writing felt a bit more casual than some of Steinbeck's other books. And that forced me to kind of, rethink how I was going to approach reading this book, if that makes sense. I didn't read it like I read East of Eden, which I read pretty slowly. I read in a way that I would read most other books. With this book, I kind of almost had to flick like a switch in my head to kind of approach the writing in this book, because it is very much characteristic of other Steinbeck books. But I found the writing and especially the dialogue to be not difficult to read, but at points I had to reprogram my brain to understand what was being said, because the vernacular is so different to kind of the everyday vernacular that we use today, especially in the UK at the very least. That being said, the writing is beautiful. We get extremely vivid descriptions of the landscape and the nature. That plays a really big part in this book, and that inherently contrasts with this kind of threat of industrialization and capitalism that is kind of looming over this family that we're following and the other characters in the book as well. There is a sense of desperation that is inherent in the tone throughout this book. It's very much once certain things happen kind of in the start of the book, there is this sense of time is running out. There is this sense of we need to escape. There is this sense of we need to find the next place that we're going to call home. Otherwise, we might not survive this. And so even though there is opportunity and there is this potential for a better life, there is this constant threat that is following this family. And that is reflected in the writing and the tone and the pacing that we get throughout, which I think is very much characteristic of Steinbeck. I found that in his other books, and I just think it's absolutely beautifully done in this book as well. We feel this sense of time is running out. It's quite disconcerting, yet we're hoping that the characters are able to get some level of relief at some point in their journey to find a better life. Let's talk about characters next. I'm not going to try and do a really long review on this video, because honestly, I could probably spend hours talking about this book, but for the sake of time, I know not everybody on my channel really cares about reading classics, so I will try to keep this one a little bit shorter. But in terms of characters, there are so many good characters. Tom Joad, our main character, he's the kind of instigator of this book. He's the kind of focal point, at least at the start of this book, is kind of going through a very interesting journey. At the start of this book, he's left prison due to good behavior, and he's on his way to go and meet his family, to go find his family. It's interesting because he comes across a man called Jim Casey, and Jim Casey is actually my favorite character of this book. He is an ex-preacher. He believes in the power of community and working together as a community, not for some bank or, some rich landowner. He really believes in people coming together and providing for each other. And the interesting thing about these two characters is that they're so different, and yet they almost come to the same conclusions by the end of the book. Tom, at the start of this book, almost feels quite hopeful because he's just come out of prison and he's going to go find his family. Casey brings him back down to reality and tells him, well, look, things aren't going well. Things aren't going right. And they both end up going together to go and find Tom's family. And when they go and find Tom's family, they realise that nobody is there because they've been forced to leave that piece of land because the bank have purchased that land. It's really interesting because they both are trying to grasp onto something that gives them hope. When they find the family, there's this sense of relief that they've all found each other. But what we then realise is that this is just the start of what is going to be a really painful journey for every single one of them. As the book progresses, Tom feels the injustices of the world. He sees what is happening and he's not happy about it. And that's a progression that we see throughout the book. Casey's interesting because he's already aware of the injustices of the world. He's already aware of it when he meets Tom, and he's trying to kind of maybe not educate him about it, but at least make him somewhat aware of what is the reality of this world whilst he's been in prison. But the difference between Casey and Tom is that Casey actually tries to do something about it. He tries to instill this sense of community between these people, and he tries to force people to understand, and he tries to convince people to understand. Not convince them is not the right word because he's not preaching about it, but he's sharing his opinion in a way that he wants people to realise that really their greatest strength is one another and not some other third-party entity that doesn't really care about their well-being. And then we get another character who was another one of my favourite characters, and that is Ma Jode. So Ma Jode is obviously Tom Joad's mother, and she's such a fascinating character because she just gets on with it. She's quite similar to Casey in that way. When you contrast the three of these characters, and this is kind of as I was thinking about it when I was making my little notes, Tom feels the injustice of the world as he progresses throughout the book. Casey has already felt the injustices of the world, and yet he's trying to bring people together and kind of focus on the total, not the individual. Ma Jode just gets on with it despite the injustices of the world. And it's so interesting, there's like this subtlety between each of the characters, and there's other characters too who kind of have varying degrees of this, but I think these three characters in particular were like the central focal points for the book for me, because I think they all represent slightly different views. Like they all come to the same conclusion by the end of this book, but they all approach it very differently. So the characters, they all kind of have their own individual struggles in this broader context, and they're all trying to deal with it in different ways, and they all come to different realizations at different points in the book. And yet there is just this constant sense of, regardless of these three people's views, there is injustice and nobody's really doing anything about it. All these people ultimately have to live with it and get on with it because the system doesn't ultimately care about them. And I think that's like with a lot of Steinbeck's books, there's a lot of bittersweet moments, because while maybe they all come to that realization and that is a sense of community in itself, ultimately they are still just people who could be bulldozed over and forced to leave their homes at the whims of some rich landowner or a bank. So there's I kind of briefly touched upon the thematic work there, but let's go into that a little bit more deeper. I think there's some really interesting exploration around like the circularity of life, people looking for something new, but even in that journey, coming upon death, coming upon endings, and kind of constantly going through that cycle, which I think probably everybody is guilty of at some point. I think that's just life. And I think that's very clearly shown by where the characters are at the start and where they end up by the end of this book. There is, again, with a lot of Steinbeck's books, a really interesting exploration around the cost of capitalism. The working people are very much at the bottom of the totem pole, and they're the ones that always suffer the most, even though they're the ones that typically work the most and do a lot of the grunt work. They do a lot of the unforgiving work, and I thought that was really particularly well represented in this book compared to some of his other books. There's also a really interesting view around like migration and displacement. This is a book about forced migration. This is a book about a family who are trying to seek a better life after being forcibly displaced from their home. I don't know about you guys, but that rings very, very, very familiar. Even today. This, again, is another book that is tackling with themes that are still very much relevant today and will probably still be very much relevant in 100 years, 1,000 years, who knows at this point. But I think the way that this family are treated and the other families in this book are treated, they are almost erased from their land, they're erased from their home, and they have no power to do anything about it. They have no one to go to talk it out. They have nobody to go to get another home. You know, they're literally forced from their home. Like it's insane. It's insane. And then lastly, there's a lot of, I mean, there's obviously a lot more than this, but these are the kind of main things that I picked out. I would say there's a lot of exploration around like family, obviously, the family dynamics, how all of these people come together, how all of these people play kind of specific roles. There's also, you know, Jim is not of this family, but he very much becomes a part of this family. And family then to me kind of meant community, because Jim is very much I would say he's like the kind of symbol of community in this book. It's not just about the people who share your genetics and the people that are born into the same family. It's about the people who are outside of that too, kind of immediately outside of that, who are also in a way a part of a family. If you're part of a community, it's almost like a family, right? So I really like that exploration. There's just so much packed in this book. I found it very addictive to read. I read it a lot more quickly than I thought I would, because Steinbeck's books I tend to read quite slowly. But this one I devoured pretty quickly, because there's just this sense of like time is running out and what is going to happen to these characters, because we really don't know by the end of the book. But then the ending of the book is also not surprising given what we know about government and about how governments treat their people. So it was amazing. It was really, really, really good. When I finished this book, and I hate rating books like this because these are timeless classics. And I think regardless of whether you like it or not, which in this case I did, there is always something to be taken away from books like this. And I did love it. I initially gave it like a 4.5 stars just to show that in comparison to East of Eden, it wasn't as good in my opinion. But then I just thought to myself, don't be so ridiculous. Like, this is an amazing book. So relevant, so poignant in some ways, very bittersweet, very, very well written and beautifully written. So I had to give it a 5 stars. I'm just going to read a couple of quotes because Steinbeck is the best when it comes to quotes, and I just thought I would read a few. If he needs 1,000,000 acres to make him feel rich, seems to me he needs it because he feels awful poor inside himself. And if he's poor in himself, there ain't no 1,000,000 acres going to make him feel rich. And maybe he's disappointed that nothing he can do will make him feel rich. Truer words have never been said. If you're in trouble or hurt or need, go to poor people. They're the ones that'll help, the only ones. And then the last one that I really liked by Jim Casey, he says, I figured maybe it's all men and all women we love. Maybe that's the Holy Spirit, the human spirit, the whole shebang. Maybe all men got one big soul everybody's a part of. Now I sat there thinking it, and all of a sudden I knew it. I knew it so deep down that it was true, and I still know it. There we go. Let me know down below if you have read this book. Let me know your thoughts on it. Were there any particular themes or characters that really resonated with you? And I will see you down below in the comments. Thanks for watching, folks. Stay safe. As always, take care, and I'll see you very soon.